How's it going, guys? Hope you're doing well. We're going to look at Umbral Horrors today. This deck is basically a rank 4 spam deck similar to Hunters, but they're dark instead of light. One advantage to Umbrals over Hunters is you can abuse Mass Chameleon. They're all targets for Mass Chameleon, 0 defense. And the first one we're going to look at is Umbral Horror Ghoul. Ghoul has 18 attack, which is pretty decent, 0 defense like we mentioned before. And his effect is once per turn, you can make his attack 0, and if you do, special summon one Umbral Horror monster from your hand with 0 attack. Now that works with Unform. Unform stats are 0/0. You could also use Umbral Horror Will-o'-the-Wisp. I've been testing him out a little bit, but we'll talk about that later. His effect is, when this attacking card is destroyed by battle and sent to the grave, you can special summon 2 Umbral Horror monsters from your deck, and you can only use his effect once per turn. So if your hand's bad and all you have is him, you can crash it into a monster. You still take the damage, unfortunately, but you're going to get 2 ghouls potentially out that you can attack with if you need to, or Ixie with main phase 2 if you decide to do that. But he is a target for ghouls effect, so sometimes that comes into play. Not a whole lot. It's pretty stipulational to have both of them in your hand at the same time to be able to use ghouls effect. But these 2 monsters are both targets for Secret Sect Druid Drew. Not many people know what this card does. Pretty much every time that I play with a new person, they always have to pick it up and read it because it's that common from Judgment of the Light that you didn't care about. Basically what it does is it's Debris Dragon. His stats are 18/0, just like Umbral Horror Ghoul. But when he's summoned, you can target one level 4 dark monster in your grave with 0 attack or 0 defense, except for Secret Sect Druid Drew, and special summon that target in face of defense. Its effects are negated, and you can only use his effect once per turn. Now this gives you your 1-card Ixie plays. This deck is powerful for that. It has a lot of top deck 1-card plays. A lot of times whenever you're down on resources and it's late in the game, your opponent doesn't expect you to be able to pull off these plays, and you top deck something like Druid Drew, and you can go into whatever Ixie you choose. As I said earlier, it is a Mass Chameleon deck at heart. Mass Chameleon is a very, very good card. Came out in Judgment of the Light. Some of you guys know what it does, but if you don't, it's a trigger effect when it's normal summoned. It can't be normal summoned if you control a level 5 or higher. But when it's normal summoned, you can target one monster with 0 defense in your grave, special summon that target in face of defense, its effects are negated, and you cannot special summon monsters except from your extra deck during the turn you activate this effect. So, as we look at the deck list here, we have a total of 12 targets for Mass Chameleon. So you're going to have all the food you need for Mass Chameleon. And the great thing about Chameleon is he's also a level 4 tuner, which lets you go into your 8 synchro plays like Spark Dragon, Scrap Dragon, Crimson Blader, and in this deck in particular, Dark End Dragon, because you are running dark monsters. Next up is Goblinberg. I run 3 of him because, like I said, it is a rank 4 spam deck. So you gotta run the Goblinberg, you get that extra special so you can go into your setup plays or even your aggressive plays. The good thing about Goblinberg is it has the advantage of being a Mass Chameleon target. As I said, there are 12 targets in the deck, and Goblinberg is great because sometimes you don't always have that 0 defense dark to summon back with Chameleon. Next up is Kagetakage. Again, it's a rank 4 spam deck. Kagetakage is essential. He is, your fodder. You normal summon the Ghoul, special Kagetakage. He's also a dark, so you can use him with Druid and Ghoul and Unform or even Summoner Monk to go into things like Key Beetle, which some decks can't do. I am running Summoner Monk because my spell count is 10 or more, so I think he's justified. I'm running 3 Soul Charges, you can see, because Soul Charge is a ridiculous card. This deck can put out locks like Key Beetle Safe Zone or Spark Dragon Emptiness, and Soul Charge is worth that sometimes, at late game, rip a Soul Charge and turn the table. And Summoner Monk's in there because sometimes you've already used that Soul Charge and you've already paid the 4,000 or whatever life points and you don't want to use the second one. So you just normal summon your Monk and ditch it. And lastly, we looked at before Umbral Horror Unform. Whenever his effect, 3 Soul Charge, like I said. I'm not going to use 3 in one game, but I do want to draw it, so I'm running it at 3. Recurring Nightmare, this is your sort of recursion deck, or recursion card, rather. It says select 2 dark monsters with 0 defense in your grave and return them to your hand. So you can reuse those Druid Drews. He's a really big player in the deck, so it's really important to sort of keep your resources with him, and Recurring Nightmare really helps with that. 3 MST, because 3 MST, everybody runs, 10, 12, 14 back row. This deck really heavily relies on that 1 push per turn. You're going to get that 1 summon with Druid, your 1 summon with Mass Chameleon, and you really need that to walk. So you have your MST and triple Lance for back row hate. Book of Moon, because it's Book of Moon. Lance is something that people aren't really running a whole lot anymore, but I particularly like it, especially in this deck, like I said, that heavily relies on that 1 summon. I would say that's the biggest weakness of the deck. If you get that 1 push negated or responded to, sometimes you can be dead in the water depending on what your hand is. Also, that's a good way to use Soul Charge. You get that summon negated, just Soul Charge it back and do the play you want to do in the first place. For the trap lineup, Bottomless and Mourning are my one-ofs. I'm not running Torrential because, again, it's a 1 push per turn deck, and I can't really afford to Torrential my board most of the times. I'm also running double Vanities. I think the Vanities is really good. It's going to be good for a long time. It's going to be good against Madolches with the Angeli. It's going to be good against artifacts. Potentially, if they don't have Malakat, it's going to be good against Pendulum Summons. I just think it's a great card in general. And you can get the soft and hard lock with Spark Dragon and Key Beetle with Emptiness. Spark Dragon Emptiness is really hard to deal with. Some decks really don't have a response to that if they're not running Trap Stun or they're not running some sort of effect negation that they can get around it with. And 2 safe zones. Like I said, this deck can go into Key Beetle. A lot of people have forgotten about the Key Beetle safe zone lock. I took this deck to regionals in Frederick a couple weeks ago and sat down against a Heretic Ruler player, and when he saw the Key Beetle safe zone lock, he just... I thought he was going to reach across the table and put hands on me, but he took it pretty well. I ended up decking him out and won the match, and he was just baffled that someone's still feasibly doing this. Pretty much the only decks that can do it now are like Infernities or Evil Swarm, but people aren't prepared for it. And some decks in the meta now, Madolche in particular, here in a couple weeks when they get Angeli, it's going to be a problem because it's non-targeting removal. Key Beetle safe zone does not work against them. Key Beetle Emptiness works pretty good against them, though. They can't do their combo. The triple Fiendish, because I strongly believe that pretty much every competitive deck needs some sort of effect negation. Fiendish is sort of the generally accepted effect negation card for now. I think that may change to Breakthrough in the near future. Not really sure on that though, but for now I'm sticking with Fiendish. Another reason I'm using Fiendish over Breakthrough is because I do run Scrap Dragon. A lot of people like to overlay with something that's Fiendish, so you have a clogged back row and potentially a dead spot, and Scrap Dragon gets you a free pop out of that dead spot, so I think that Fiendish is really good. And One Morning, like I said before, it's sort of obligatory. The extra deck, our 8 synchros are Crimson Blader. It's not as relevant with the Dragon Rollers at 1, but I think that people don't really expect Crimson Blader anymore. So I know that Lightsworn Rollers just recently topped, and artifacts are going to be a big deal. So I think that Crimson Blader's not necessarily as good as it used to be, but it's still worth running, especially in a deck like this that can throw out those 8 synchros so easily. Scrap Dragon, like I said, there's a good interaction with this deck with Scrap Dragon and Venus Chain. I think that Scrap Dragon's a really good card. He's got great stats. He's got a great effect. Dark End Dragon. I mentioned before, you can go into Dark End Dragon in this deck because you are running dark targets with Mass Chameleon. Dark End's requirements say that you have to have 1 non-tuner dark monster when you synchro summon him. So a lot of people don't really know what he does because it has that stipulation for his summon. Dark End Dragon, once per turn, can target 1 monster your opponent controls. This card loses 500 attack and defense, and you send that target to the grave. So Scrap Dragon is really good for some sort of non-destruction effect. You want to get rid of a monster, but you don't want to destroy it. You're playing against Boojins, and they've dropped the hare instead of the turtle, and you got to get around it, but you can't destroy it. Dark End's a great answer for that. Or you're playing against water, and you know that they have a Lind face down, and you don't want to deal with whatever they're going to bring out with it, so you use Dark End. It's a good non-destruction sort of removal. And then we have Spark Dragon is our last one. This is becoming one of my favorite 8 synchros until we get Chord Red Dragon, or whatever it's called now, Red Hot Dragon. Spark Dragon's very, very good, and like I said earlier, the interaction with Vanity's Emptiness and Safe Zone, it can be a problem. And also the interaction between Scrap Dragon and Spark Dragon, if you manage to get both of them out, free pops every turn. For the rank 4s, I'm playing Crazy Box. I'm not crazy about it, but I went up against 4 skill drain decks in Frederick out of 5 rounds. And if that's going to be something to expect in this format, I'm going to have to run Crazy Box in a rank 4 spam deck. You can make them with Kage, so it's a good answer for skill drain. If I had this in my extra deck in Frederick, maybe I would have done a little better. Maybe not. It's whatever. 2 Master Key Beetle. As I said, they are darks. You can use Kage and Summoner Monk to make Master Key Beetle. And you can throw out the Key Beetle Safe Zone if you think that whatever deck you're going up against can't deal with that. Next is 2 King of the Feral Imps. This is another common card that most people overlooked. Some of the Alien players were really excited about this card, but this is great in this deck because there are 6 targets. You can search your Kage, or you can search Mass Chameleon. Being able to search Mass Chameleon is really what makes this deck consistently good. It is a 1-card play deck, but you need those 1-card plays to be able to do it. So King of the Feral is usually my first turn play. I'm going to spam into King of the Feral, set up for Mass Chameleon. Hopefully I'm detaching the Chameleon target while I'm adding the Chameleon. So he's just a great sort of secondary MVP for the deck. I'm also running 2 101s because it is a rank 4 spam deck, and 101's a very good card this format. If you don't have the second 101 for the 101 war, sometimes you can't get that game. Also running Heartland Draco. He just came out of Premium Gold. Some people may have seen it, may have not. I think he's a good game finisher. Basically, it's just a generic rank 4 that you can detach 1 and he can attack directly that turn. No other monsters you control can attack directly that turn, but if they have sort of an unbeatable field and they're real low on life points, getting that 2000 direct in can be potentially good. Direwolf, just because I think that Direwolf is still a great card. It's a rank 4 spam deck, and I don't think I would run any rank 4 spam deck without Direwolf. Excite Knight, or however you pronounce it, somebody correct me. It's Evil Swarm Knight. I don't really need to give a reason for running him. Dweller, sort of fallen out of grace recently. A lot of people have been cutting it out of their extra deck just because Water's not as popular. Sylvans don't have everything they need yet, so they're not really all that popular. And Dweller hasn't been that good in the past 3 or 4 weeks. But it's in here because we're getting Primal in, I guess it's a week and a half from now. I don't know when the video is going to go up, but once we get Primal, artifacts are going to be a big deal, and Dweller stops them. So I think Dweller's a good idea to put in if you don't have it in right now. So that's the main and extra deck. I don't have the side deck complete here. I'm just going to kind of go over a few things with this deck in particular that you might want to think about siding. This deck has a pretty rough matchup against Geargia because of Trap Stun. You really heavily rely on your traps to get your 1-card plays off. A lot of them are using Wiretap now too, so maybe side system down, or whatever side card you have in your arsenal for Geargia is good. Particularly, I like to side deck Devi against Geargia because they can't play if you deck Devi them. King of the Feral, the one we were talking about earlier, is a deck Devi target. He has 23 attack and he's dark, so he works great with deck Devi. You get your +1, add your Mass Chameleon, they make a push next turn, and you just deck Devi them. This actually won me the match round 8 in Frederick was playing against a Gear player. I did my opening King of the Feral, Search for Mass Chameleon, set deck Devi, and he opened up, set 1 pass, and I already knew he was playing Gear because it was game 3. So I deck Devi'd at his end phase, killed the armor on field, and all 5 of his cards, I believe it was, he had 5 monsters and none of them escaped deck Devi. So he was just, his second turn in the game, he was top decking. He basically got wind up hand looped. So I think deck Devi is a good idea to think about. Also, you can do Eradicator since you're playing Key Beetle and Crazy Box, so you could consider that. I know spellbooks aren't really a terribly big thing anymore, but it could be good. I think I would probably use Eradicator for traps more often than not now, with Karakuri Gear and Pure Gear and just so many things running heavy trap lineups now. It could be potentially good against them. Also, Light Imprisoning Mirror, not particularly because this deck has a bad matchup against Bujins, because it doesn't. If you're playing this deck and testing and you go up against a Bujin player, make Spark Dragon. They can't get over Spark Dragon. You just attack, chain Spark Dragon's effect on itself, they crane, you take the damage, whatever. You basically just grind them out of resources with Spark Dragon. They really can't do much about it because it's a sort of sit on Yamato. They don't make big pushes. As long as you can protect Spark Dragon from 101, you're safe that you're going to win the Bujin matchup. But I am siding Light Imprisoning, or I suggest siding it, because the Consular matchup, on the other hand, is very bad. This is a 1-push deck. Like we talked about earlier, you need the back row hate for the 1-push, and you need to stop Pleiades for that 1-push, because if they're able to get that summon interruption in, you're not going to be able to make your plays, and you're probably not going to last very long in the game if you can't get your Druid to walk and you can't get your Mass Chameleon to walk. So I would suggest siding this. Again, artifacts, I've been playtesting with them a little bit, and they're pretty nuts, so Light Imprisoning is going to be a big deal for them. I think since we're not getting Nebra Disc in the TCG, Consular artifacts are going to be probably the deck that abuses that sort of engine. I know that's how it is in the OCG. It's sort of Chronomaly artifacts and Consular artifacts, but they have confirmed that we're not getting Nebra Disc, so we don't have to deal with that yet. But yeah, take it or leave it. I suggest siding Light Imprisoning, but if you're against it, side whatever you want, whatever works for you. Everybody has a different sort of preference for their side deck. It's something that people work a lot on, and hopefully we'll have a video here in the future about some different side deck ideas. I'm going to get with some friends and get basically all the things together that I can think of for siding for this format, and maybe even the end of this format, the beginning of next format. I know a lot of things are changing in the game right now. It's getting pretty crazy with Soul Charge and Angeli and Satella Knights, Shadows. We're getting a lot of really cool stuff, and it's going to be tough to decide in the future, so hopefully we'll get that out to you. But if you did enjoy the deck list, leave a like, leave a comment, let me know what you think about the deck. Do some testing with it. Tell me if there's some things that you found really worked for you well, or some things really didn't work for you well. Leave those in the comments below. I want your guys' feedback. Let me know if you enjoy playing this deck. I think it's a lot of fun. Let me know if you think it's a lot of fun. Thanks a lot, guys.